to Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Seldin, and today's guest is Dr. Marline C. Duroseau. Dr. Marline C. Duroseau is a leadership executive, resilience expert, speaker, author, and executive coach with more than 23 years of leadership experience, including serving as the CFO in the healthcare industry. She is also a doctoral researcher and the creator of the conceptual framework Leader Morphology in the Labyrinth. Through her work, Dr. Mar helps leaders and organizations navigate disruption with greater empathy, courage, and resilience. She is also the creator of Chaos to Calm, a transformational framework and experience designed to help high-performing women regulate stress, lead with clarity, and move from overwhelm to alignment in life and leadership. So welcome, Dr. Mar. So glad to have you here and so glad to jump in. Just to give everybody an idea of today's topic, it'll be the importance of embracing vulnerability and disruption in order to unlock powerful, empathetic leadership, which is oh so important today. So let's get started. If we can jump right in and maybe touch on first what the thought process around vulnerability and disruption is in the workplace and how we can start using things like vulnerability, which today in my mind is such a bad word or a negative in view for leadership, how we use that to a positive.
Vulnerability, oftentimes, just based on my experience and the lived experience of many other leaders, women leaders namely, but men as well, just people who are tasked with the role and the responsibility of being a leader, oftentimes vulnerability is not one of the characteristics or the traits that they use to describe this leader or to basically paint the picture of a leader. And the reason why is because in the past, vulnerability has often been looked at as maybe a soft skill or something that is not warranted in a position of power or a perceived position of leadership, because you have to be strong, you have to be assertive, you have to present a certain way. So I think we need to reframe that now, because vulnerability is something that will allow not only leaders themselves, but also organizations to actually thrive the way they need to, because you're allowing people to bring in humanity in the stoic work that they're doing. At the end of the day, as humans, we do have emotions, we do have disruptions. And because you're a human, you're going to react to whatever disruption is happening. But allowing your leader to be able to show that, it makes the people that you're leading be able to open up to you with whatever they may need, because at the end of the day, we have to come together to meet a common goal. So if your team can't come to you or don't feel safe coming to you, and your leadership doesn't trust you because you're too vulnerable, you just have disconnection all over the place. Right. So we definitely need to reframe that. Yeah.
Definitely. I feel like there are a lot of stereotypes in the workplace, especially between men and women. Do you feel like they have to overcome the stereotype around vulnerability differently because of their gender in the workplace?
I do feel that way. I know we're trying to get to a place where we're normalizing equality, normalizing inclusion, but I think that there's something special about the differences that innately exist in men and women. And just based on my research and my experience in a leadership role, and just in life, women societal wise are tasked with being the more nurturing folks, being the more empathetic, and the men are often seen as the superheroes, the leader, the one that can't really get sidetracked by emotional things or whatever these things are. So I think that the way that society has been set up for a long time, frankly, the onus is more on the women to not necessarily be vulnerable, because in men, they're not looking for it, because it's already understood or to be expected that, oh no, they're not vulnerable, they can have it, which means I'm going to promote him maybe quicker. I'm going to pay him more, because when something comes up, I can trust that he'll be here. I can trust that he won't let his emotions get the best of him and he'll be able to deliver. So I do think that women do get a more targeted attack when it comes to vulnerability, because I think it is beyond the organizations, because it's inherently in society, which is why we're trying to change the narrative around that, so that regardless of if you're a man or a woman, you should allow vulnerability to come in there, because at the end of the day, we're human. And in order for your team to produce for you, you have to have that vulnerability as well.
I think that thought process is so important, because to me, as bad as it sounds, unless we flip the script in our mind, it's a lose situation for a man or a woman. Because as you said, the woman is more targeted. I already know you will be vulnerable. And when you are, you're just going to prove me right with my assumptions around you. But then for the men, they're not allowed to be vulnerable. So the men that do show vulnerability are seen as weaker, and maybe they aren't the ones that you want to promote because they don't fit the male stereotype. And until we normalize the thought process that vulnerability is not a bad thing and it does help create these EQ and empathetic leaders, we're just doing, I feel like, both genders a disservice here.
And for now, like a lot of the roles now, I know there's a lot of role congruity just based on society and cultural norms and things of that nature. But to echo what you're saying, we have to take the roles in terms of the gender out of it
Right.
because both men and women are great at so many things.
Yeah.
And some of the things, regardless of if it's normal to us or comes natural to us, it shouldn't be used as a hindrance, but rather, hey, we have this special effect or we have
Yeah.
this special sauce that we can use to propel things forward.
Yeah, that's right. And how does this translate? So, if you have a leader who is vulnerable or can show vulnerability, and that becomes a strength and something that keeps the momentum moving forward, how does that then translate into an empathetic leader that is then seen and practices empathy with their group?
You know what it does, Josh? It allows psychological safety in the workplace. And even if it's not the workplace, because oftentimes people who are leaders, they lead in the workplace and out of the workplace. That's
Mhm.
just their nature most of the
Right.
time. It allows that psychological safety and allows people to be able to trust them because that trust is such a big factor. Because it's not only the leader going through what they're going through, but if they take this mindset of, I don't care, it's not me, what does that have to do with me? This project is due, or this project is overdue, or this is the emergent situation that we're dealing with, so I
Mhm.
need it now. That doesn't translate well because at that point,
No.
the people who are then trying to respond to you, because remember, the overall group goal when it comes to employer employee is to come together for whatever business outcome.
Right.
So if you have the people coming to you, they don't trust you because they know you don't care, they have a problem, you're not trying to help them work around it, you don't show any compassion, no empathy, what you have is a lot of people working with you that they may in turn work against you
Yeah.
because now they're not putting forth maximum effort because they think you don't care anyway. Some may say that it may cause you to look worse versus you thinking you're the stern and hard leader and I'm going to make them do it regardless. No, it may end up biting you in the behind because you have to be able to show that empathy. Because I know in my case, for instance,
Mhm.
when COVID happened in the healthcare industry, we really took a big hit. And during COVID, it was the nursing home industry that I was associated with. And it was rough because not only did we have a situation where the whole world didn't know what we were going to do,
Yeah.
then the actual employees that were there, they were afraid of this thing. Do I go to work? Do I not go to work? And believe it or not, so many people, because of all of the regulations and the regulatory bodies, they put so much stress and obligation on healthcare workers. So you had people tasked with, I need to come to work. If not, I'm going to lose my license. I need to
Right.
come to work. If not, I'm going to be reported for abandonment. And you have the leaders, whether it was the nursing home administrator, whether it was the lead nurse in charge, whether it was the director of nursing, that if they didn't show that empathy, because you have to be able to express that to your staff, maybe you
Mhm.
allow them to take shifts. Because another thing that was happening, Josh, is oh, people, we were losing them left and right, employees and residents, losing
Yeah.
them, meaning they weren't coming back. So who are these people and where are they? There's no one to work. So the
Yeah.
people that you do have there, you have to take into account what they're going through, allow them to share with you. Maybe their family member got COVID and they want to be able to figure something out to help them. But here you are showing no empathy, no compassion because CMS says we have to have this amount of staff and that's all you care about, your numbers.
Right.
So I know that was a long-winded explanation, but I wanted
No.
to give a real life example in how that empathy goes a long way. And I have to tell you, I, as the CFO, was in the corporate office
Mhm.
and COVID impacted us a great deal because we supported the actual folks that were on the ground helping the residents. So when that happened, a lot of my staff, they were driving miles. And at that point, there was a order where if you didn't have the official documentation, you couldn't be on the road and things of that nature. And a lot of them wanted to give up. A lot of them were dealing with their own families that had issues. But they said, Marline, the only reason we make this trek every day and do it in spite of what's going on is because of you. You
Oh,
listen to us. So when we get here late, it's not, okay, you're late. Where have you been? Do you know this person called, that person called, this one was late? Talk to me. You're already here. You're already late. There's nothing you can do. Let's
right.
sit and debrief. Let me hear it. Let's go through it. And then I figure out a way to help you get motivated, switch that mindset, because now that you're at work, I really would love for you to focus on here, because that'll also help you not think about that, because there's nothing you can do about it
Right.
here. But people, they have to trust you, and you have to show that true compassion and empathy, and not that fake stuff. It has to be authentic, because if
Yes.
you're not authentic, forget it. They're going to see right through it. And then at that point, it's a lose situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Mar, a lot of people are way more intelligent than we give them credit for, and they can see
Yeah.
right through the BS if it's not
Correct.
authentic.
Correct.
And I feel like you hit the nail on the head with things, because we do need empathy, and everybody, we're all human, and they have very human interactions, very human moments. And so often you see, especially higher ups with a bit of an ego, say, yeah, I'm going through this too. And mine, and I hate when people do this, they compare bad to worse. Your situation's bad, I get it, but mine's worse. So you shouldn't feel so bad about your bad situation because mine's worse than yours. And look, I'm here. I'm pushing through. I'm sucking it up. So why can't you? And that's just such the wrong mentality, because that doesn't make them feel better. It doesn't make what they're going through easier. And like you said, the next time they're just not going to show up, because this isn't a safe space. This isn't a place where they can be vulnerable and say, this is the real life thing that I'm going through. My parent has COVID. My brother's in the hospital, whatever. This is why I'm late. I got here on time. So why couldn't you get here on time? I'm going through things too.
Exactly. And it's hard because that same phrase, because we hear it a lot,
Yeah.
especially in retail or hospitality and healthcare. There's a lot of that, because before I went into the healthcare field, my first job was at Taco Bell. So I was in the fast food hospitality. And then I worked at Sears. So I was in retail. And a lot of the managers, whenever it's a service-based business, like that's
Mhm.
ultimately how the thinking is and the thought process. But exactly what you said, Josh, if only it was said a different way, then you are looked at as relatable and like you understand people, versus I did it, why can't you? Instead of saying it a bit differently, the same thing, but you frame it as I totally understand. I can definitely relate to what you're going through when it was going on with me, or I'm currently going through it now. So perhaps next time, maybe try this and that'll help you. They'll receive that information better
Right.
than you scolding them, so to speak, because your situation is worse and you were still able to do it. No, that's not how you
Mm.
teach the thought of resilience and the whole aspect of it.
That's right. You got to build a bridge instead of a barrier with this. And that's
Correct.
what a lot of times people don't do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, as a leader embraces this idea of vulnerability and embraces the fact that it isn't as bad and as much of a weakness as everybody thinks, it's the right direction to go, how do you then see them starting to change some of their behaviors to embrace vulnerability and what that comes with, to maybe enable and empower their organizations more than they normally do before?
The behavior that they exhibit is basically they're being watched. As a
Mhm.
leader, your team and the people around you, they're observing you. So you have to exhibit a behavior where no matter what, even if you're not in the room, people know what your legacy is. They know what you're known for. Like they know, if Josh were here, this is what he would have done. Or I'm dealing with this problem. Oh man, Josh is on PTO today. I can't talk to him about it.
Right.
Why? That's because Josh took the time to talk to his staff. And the thing is, I also want people to know you don't necessarily have to feel like you have to spill your guts to your
Mhm.
leaders either. But there's something about, even if I don't give you any detail about what I'm going through, the way that I present and the way that I show up for you, meaning I come in, dialogue, saying good morning, asking about the work, not just is it done, but what can I do to
Mhm.
help you get through it? Is there any additional support that you may need? Let's say something happens and you're not feeling too well on a particular day. You, as the leader, because you've gotten to know your team something's not quite right. So you know to pull them to the side and not ask them in front of everyone. All
Right.
of these are behaviors that are basically witnessed. And with that, people tend to talk to you more. It's all about engaging in that conversation that feels really real, it feels really relatable, and it feels really supportive. Because at that point, now we're able to work together to get whatever work done that we need to get done. And another part of the behavior is your team and even your managers, because people also forget, even though you're a leader, many leaders have a boss too. They
Right.
have a leader. So you're also a leader, but also an employee. So you want to make sure that they see how you're able to adapt. They see how you're able to pivot. So that behavior of you going with the flow, switching gears, but doing it in a calm, strategic, confident manner, all of that is what helps build where disruption happens. They know, okay, I can go to Dr. Mar because the world is falling apart. So I have to go tell someone anyway. I'm going to go tell her because she's my boss, but I know she's not going to freak out to the point where now I'm freaking out because she's freaking out. So
Right.
those type of behaviors, when you're able to calmly get through the disruption, and it doesn't mean that it's not a big deal. It doesn't mean that it's not bad. It doesn't mean you don't care, but you have to exhibit the behavior of being collected so that people can trust going to you when the disruption is happening, if they're having their own disruption, and seeing you exhibit those behaviors to help move the entire leadership process along.
That balance between being calm and disruption and vulnerability is so important as well,
Yeah.
because we've talked so much right now about how important having vulnerability is, how it can lead to empathetic leadership, but
Yeah.
it is a balance. There is, I think, in my opinion, too much at some point, and especially when the disruption happens, is one of those times where your team, whether it's like you said, your leader or the people that are working for you, look to you to be calm, to make those decisions, to be the one that, you're going to be the one, like in sports. I always pass the ball to the person who's going to take the game-winning shot, and that's who we need to be. And when we are too vulnerable and we are too vocal about how stressed we are and how we don't know if we can make it through this disruption, and we don't know, we're creating all this doubt in the universe that everybody sees, and it does not help everybody. It really creates that chaos within the organization, because they think, if I can't go to Dr. Marr and she can't be calm and do this for us, who can I go to? We're all doomed. And that's just so important.
And I love that you mentioned that balance, because that's something that I stressed a lot as well. I have people that I've worked with, Josh, from 2002 till now, 2008, 2015, and we are still, for lack of better words, cordial. We're still friendly to each other. And that's because, yes, I have the vulnerability. Yes, I'm empathetic. Yes, I'm compassionate, but I'm also stern. I'm also no nonsense. I don't know what it is, but they know, okay, I can go to Dr. Marr. We're not going to have a session where, because sometimes people blur the lines between personal and professional relationships.
Mm.
And then when you're trying to lead them by showing the vulnerability or what you deem is to be empathetic, it can get a little muddy. So, with practice and as different disruptions come up, you show them how we can push that lever, but we know where the buck stops, if that makes sense. Because you still are the leader, you still are the one in charge, and you can't go in there running around like a chicken with your head cut off, because no one's going to trust you. It all comes back down to that trust.
Yep.
Or if you're the leader that, because people know they can speak with you, they do. And then next thing you know, 2 months down the line, there's the water fountain talk because somebody found out about something and they're like, oh my gosh, the only person I told was my boss, and now it's out there.
Right.
So there's a huge level of balance that is required when it comes to the vulnerability, to your point, because you have to be able to balance it and not go too much to the left or too much to the right, just to have that right impact. But that takes practice too. But different disruptions
Yep.
require different levels of balance. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what shows the strength of a leader, because having that consistency of that balance, and
Yeah.
like you just said, it's never going to be exactly the same. Different
Right.
disruptions will cause different things to happen and will require different things, but
Right.
it's easy to be a leader when it's calm. And it's very
Yeah.
difficult to be a good leader when there are disruptions, when there's chaos. And your team, you keep using the word trust. And I'm a firm believer that trust is a foundation, just like a house. If trust is broken, your house, your organization is going to fall. And so many people are worried about being vulnerable because they're worried it's going to be weaponized against them. And we can't have that happen as a leader. But also, I think you said it perfectly. It's a balance because we also need to have accountability. And a lot of times people associate vulnerability, empathy with lack of accountability because I'm going to understand what you're going through so much. I can't possibly hold you accountable because that's so tough what you're going through. But I think you're a great example of this from the story you shared because people know they can go to you. They know you're a safe space. So they know when you are being stern, when you are being very serious about what needs to happen, when you're holding people accountable, it's extremely legitimate because you also have this huge empathetic, vulnerable side of yourself as well. You're not this hard ass that anytime somebody brings something up, you chew them a new one, and then they're not going to know which is tough person, Dr. Marr, because that's just who she is, or hey, she's actually serious about this because I know all these other times I talk to her, she's extremely empathetic. So I know this is serious.
I think my personality is just one that I don't know, just like that. Because ever since I was a little girl, people would come to me with their problems. But then at the same time, they knew, oh, okay, I'm going to ask Marline for help. So that means I'm going to have to already tell her, so what did you do about it already? What have you tried? Things like that. And I continue that. And just to add a quick funny story, one of my mentors, when I started, I remember walking in for my interview. I was a senior in college and I walked in for the interview. I came in with my burgundy suit and all the things that they taught me in high school on how to prepare for an interview. And that was just my style anyway. I just love to dress up, but that's
Yeah.
another story. So then my boss, basically at the time, she was going to be my boss. She was the CFO. And after she hired me and a few months went by, she said, I knew from the moment you walked in those doors for your interview that you would be my replacement. And
Wow.
Josh, she took me under her wing. And that's why I became CFO. We've been together over 20 years. And I say that to say, even though she saw something in me, she gave me different tests throughout our entire professional career at work. But one of the things that it took her maybe 2 to 3 years to really understand about me, she's the type that's very vocal, very animated. And I'm not like that because
Mm.
my mom, she didn't play that. I am a child of Haitian immigrants. That culture of children are to be seen and not heard. You better make sure you're behaved, even if the adults aren't in the room, because we don't want to hear bad stories. It's the whole reputation thing. So I've always been very calm and normal. So not normal, but my mentor every day, okay, they didn't turn in the report and we need to give the information to whoever and you need to call them because you're too nice to them and you need to be a B, fill in the rest of the
Yeah.
letter. You need to be a B. And you're so then, and I'm just looking at her because that's not my personality to, like, exactly to your point,
Yeah.
rip them up and thinking that they're gonna react to me. So she goes, okay, so you call them. I can't deal with it anymore. So she goes about her business. I call the folks, this, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, here you go, it's done. She said, so what did you do? I said, I explained to them how important it is. I asked what difficulties or hardships they may have been having, which is causing the delay in us receiving the information. And here's some things that they can do and blah, 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 things like that. And she goes, oh, okay. So I say that to say, Josh, after about 2 to 3 years of her telling me that I need to be a B, she
Yeah.
realized, no, you don't. You have this sense of, if Marline is calling, it's bad because
Yeah.
that means if I call and you still don't do it, you're going to get my
Mm.
boss. And you don't want that. Because at that point, they all just shut down. So I say that to say, I agree with you in that your reputation precedes you. And you have to be able to have that sense of calm where when you do come calling for something, people respect it, people understand it. And you don't have to go off the ledge to try to get folks to work because not everyone responds to that well.
No, and I think part of that situation, and you touched on it earlier in the conversation, is really knowing your people as well. Because
Yeah.
really knowing that if I have a group that
Yeah.
they may respond to people like your boss, they may respond to that, and maybe they don't respond to people who are more so like you and I, who may have that
Yeah.
more calm demeanor, but serious when we call. And then some
Right.
people, to your point, will just immediately shut down if they
Yeah.
have somebody like your boss. And that's why it's so important to get to know them. But
Yeah.
you keep using these examples, which I think is great on asking what help is needed, asking why they haven't been able to accomplish what was asked. Because at the end of the day, and somebody told me this a couple of years ago in one of the trainings I was in, we aim to, but rarely ever come to work as a 10. I am never going to come to work as a 10 out of 10 today. I may come in as a 7 today, and I may be a 5 tomorrow because something happened in my personal life. And asking that why and asking what help is needed and what barriers you're going into. We may just have proud people who work for us who keep running into issues and they don't want to escalate to us because they may feel like that's weakness. And so your approach compared to your boss's approach is so strong because it shows that they have leadership support and it shows that if something happens, you're there to break down the barrier for them.
Especially now, we're all walking into so many different unknowns. And you said it perfectly. There's just so many things happening in our lives as a collective, personally, financially, economically, globally, and the way that commerce is happening now. Every country, everywhere is interconnected. And that means all of the jobs are interconnected. That means
Right.
all of the leaders are interconnected somehow in some way. Couple that with our own personal things that are going on, you just have to figure out a way to help people navigate these changes because they're going to keep coming. Sometimes are worse than others, but because you don't know what we're going to encounter, because take COVID, for instance. Yes, we knew it was COVID, but no one knew what that meant. Just like your example, today I'm coming in and I'm a 5, tomorrow I might be a 7. Okay, how does that translate into the level of disruption that you're going to encounter when you go in that day? And no one has a roadmap, no one had a playbook on what to do. And you're already at a 5 or you're at a 3 or tomorrow you're at a 10. It's just all over the place. So we just have to keep that in mind when we're dealing with people
Mm.
and situations.
Yeah, and it's understanding that also it's never constant. And that's the other thing. I may
Right.
think, yeah, I know you, Dr. Mar, and you're this person and you're always going to be this person. You're always going to be the same coming in. But what people don't realize, especially today with everything that's going on in the world,
Yeah.
literally overnight, somebody could have been going from living a comfortable life to living paycheck to
Correct.
paycheck because of
Yep.
how prices have changed. And constantly understanding your people is so important because they may have always been your rock. They may always be
Yeah.
somebody that is strong, is never vulnerable because they never have to be. And now all of a sudden their life is flipped upside down.
Exactly. So it's about allowing that safe space and giving them grace because I've had my fair share of disruptions where, I just couldn't handle. And I would rather not show up and not go in versus going in and knowing that I can't be 100% for my team. Now, that may be too much to ask in terms of how everyone should deal with that. But in my particular case, the things that I was dealing with emotionally, it took over my body physically. So at
Mm.
that point, I can't make decisions. I
Yeah.
can't help you. I'm not thinking strategically or clearly. So I would be doing you a disservice. So if the opportunity presented itself, I would take a mental day because at that point, it's easier for me to hide and not show that I'm not able by just, okay, I can reply to an email or I can send you a text versus having to see you face to face. And I know that I just couldn't at that time. So I don't have the secret formula on how to do that because some people don't have that option. And many days I didn't either, where even if I was dealing with something, I still had to show up. But just learning how to emotionally regulate, it's not just only a personal mental health type situation, it's also just a skill that you need for your life in general. And I'm an empath. On top of everything else, I'm an empath, like my mother. Okay. So
Yeah.
I could be watching the news and something happened and I just say, okay, I need to go lie down for 30 minutes because my body gets consumed with what this is or this hardship that I see this person is going through. So I know my limits, I know myself. So just like we have to learn our team, we also have to have that level of self-awareness and be able to really say, okay, how am I today? To your point, exactly what you said. How am I today? What level am I at? Am I going to be able to deal with something new that comes up? Because one of the things I don't like is having to say sorry, and
Yeah.
not because I'm perfect, but I don't like to say sorry if it's something that I know I could have avoided.
Mm.
Meaning, I'm snapping at someone, I'm short with them. They didn't do anything to me. It's my own issues or my
Mm.
own whatever I'm going through is causing me to choose now to react that way. And that's not good. So that's also what I keep in the back of my brain. I don't want to have to fake it to the point where I'm now snapping at people because I couldn't fake it anymore. And that's not authentic. Not easy, but it's, yeah.
It is. No, I appreciate you sharing that because it isn't easy. And a lot of times we say it in a way that it seems like it should be, which a lot of
Right,
times make people feel even worse that they can't do it. But
right,
it isn't
right.
easy. So I think your example and your story there really helps reinforce that. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with anybody? Any final thoughts?
Listen, this was just a wonderful conversation. I have to tell you that I earned my doctorate in organizational leadership. And even when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do my research on and things of that nature, I grappled with the idea of leadership. I said, what is this business of just constant leadership? I don't understand why we have to keep studying leadership. But this was a conversation with myself that
Mm,
happens in my head sometimes.
yeah.
So all of a sudden, one day it clicked. I said, some people I think are natural born leaders. Others, it's a skill that you can have, but some people just have it. But you get people who get promoted where they go into work, they do such a phenomenal job. So they automatically, okay, you're going to get rewarded for that. Some of the rewards are by way of promotion. But then once that promotion happens, they're no longer just an employee, they're a leader. Who's
Right.
training them? Who helped develop them? So I think that one of the last words I'd like to say is that just like leadership constantly evolves and it will constantly evolve because the people, meaning the leaders and the team of followers, and not followers in a negative way. You can't lead if you don't have people with you. I like
Right.
to call them team members, but leaders, followers, that whole follower relationship situation, you just have to give yourself the space to grow, the space to continue to learn, and be okay with not having all the answers. Be okay with asking for help because you never know when the day is going to come where you'll change someone's life just by allowing them that safe space to speak with you or you sharing your story or your experience with them. And it just helps keep leadership moving along, whether it's self leadership or leadership in the context of corporate organizations.
That's perfect. I appreciate that. That
Yes, of
is
course.
truly a way to go about this in a successful way. So, to remind everybody, this was Dr. Marline C. Duroseau. And if you want any more information on her, I will have her information in the body of the podcast, the posting, the description of the podcast, any way that you can get a hold of her. And for whatever reason, if you can't get a hold of her, get a hold of me and I'll make sure I connect you both together because I'm sure you will love to learn even more about what we've talked about today because I feel like we've just scratched the surface of it. You can like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on all podcast platforms, to my Instagram, my YouTube, and TikTok at Leading Quarters. And you can email me with any questions you may have for myself or Dr. Marr, or any ideas you may have for future episodes, or if you're interested in being on a future episode at leadingquarters@gmail.com. But I truly appreciate everything you've shared, Dr. Marr. It is, again, something I think that is viewed not in the right way today in the workplace and in leadership circles. And I think the movement starting and everything that you're sharing and everything that you're doing, obviously, in your professional way, is really changing that mindset. I truly appreciate you coming here today and sharing that with us.
Very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak with great people like you and just talk about the real things that are plaguing us in life because we can't avoid them and it's okay to take them face on. So thank you so much for having me.